When it comes to the concepts like Elan Vital or the vitalism, a notion that everything is alive or everything is conscious or something, that actually, for a long time, that was dismissed as superstition and we shouldn't think about those ways anymore. But it's coming back in a slightly different form.
And so I think there's something at the heart of nature that's, in a sense, part of nature but other than nature, the Elan Vital. It's a vital impulse in nature.
There was a period of time when, and still is the case, where people think about life as being fundamentally different from physics. And part of the explanation for a while was, well, that's because life has something special. It has this Elan Vital, for example, that just, or an immanence to it that physics doesn't have, and that's a special quality of life.
What is it that makes nature do something new? And truthfully, if you look from a scientific perspective, there's really no good scientific explanation for novelty in nature. Science can tell us what nature is. It's got carbon bonds, it's got hydrogen, it forms compounds, so things come together, but why do things come together to form something new?
And we're just beginning to think about it in terms of complexity theory, the fact that these emergent systems and processes create more structure and more order out of less. And that's part of that sense of emergence towards some end state, which is more structured, more complex. So we see this process in physics as well as in chemistry and biology and consciousness, where the emergence of a galactic spiral is a beautiful process where somehow these inanimate glowing balls of matter find a way to dance around rather than simply just bumping and going off in random directions. They are brought into a synchronous process where they then display the beauty of the spiral, the galactic spirals.
So it gives ideas like panpsychism. So panpsychism, it basically says that everything has some kind of proto-awareness in it. Everything from large structures like us down to electrons. So that it's somehow embedded in the structure of reality itself. So that would suggest then that if you think of us, we're aware, animals are aware, this would make insects have a kind of awareness. This would have atoms have a proto-awareness all the way down. But we don't often then think of going up the ladder. Well, an elephant is bigger than us, but what about the Earth? What about the solar system, a star, the galaxy? They're all extremely complex structures. They can be thought of in a sense in the way that we think of the brain as having awareness, because they have recursion, they have loops that fall back on each other, feedback and so on. They may well be complex enough, if complexity is the real issue here, to be aware. So the sun, you think about the complexity of the sun, it's way more complex than the brain. Maybe it's aware. Maybe the solar system is aware, and so on. So this then creates, by simply taking the logic and going up as far as you can get, that's a conscious universe. Does that mean that reality is aware and alive? Yeah, kind of.
That means, imagine the biological world being vivified by some force, sort of a life force or a life principle that moves it on and interacts between biological bodies, even when they're not touching. Well, let's call it a living force, Elan Vital. So a force that's living at the same time.
So it's not necessarily a substance that transmits like the way a warm piece of metal transmits heat, but it's more like a field, a potential that is moving through space and time, and that potential carries with it the ability to activate certain things.
See what that tells us about our existence in the world. It means that there are messages or connections between different objects, different life forms and different minds that aren't mediated through anything else. Invisible, like the gravity waves passing through space, needing no intermediary, maybe no body to move through. So that means, imagine the biological world being vivified by some force. One person thinking something can affect the thought of another, not mediated through physical contact or particular brain waves. There's some kind of connection. Now, I have to admit I don't fully understand it, but if I take physical particles, the life principle, and now I get to mind, I recognize that it should be everything that these are, and beyond that, mystical, incomprehensible in some sense.
A sort of mystical inner force that makes things want to be alive.
So that there's a directionality to that process as well. It's not just biological systems that are being drawn to more complex structures and more interesting structures. It's physics as well.
And Teilhard de Chardin eventually translated that into his principle of omega. There's this principle of centration. There's this principle of wholeness at the heart of nature. It's sort of within nature, one with nature, but totally different than nature. He eventually called that Omega God, God Omega, within and ahead. And I think that makes a lot of sense. In other words, if you look at our own lives, we don't really like to change. We are not prone to change. And I think we're very representative of nature itself. Things like to stay the same. We're very happy in our neighborhoods and going to our different stores, and unless there's something completely other than us that challenges us to see in a new way, to think in a new way. So that's what the Elan Vital, or Omega, is. It's something that's, in a sense, within nature, other than, and challenging it, pushing it, empowering it, opening it up to do something new. And so I like the idea of the Elan Vital. There's, because I like the idea of Omega, because it says that, again, this is not a closed universe. This is not a closed life. That even when we look around and go, oh my gosh, it's all going downhill, we're going to have a nuclear war, our economy's, going to fall apart and all this kind of stuff. Someone who really believes or trusts that there's a vital impulse at life will say, well, it could be going downhill, but there's something within that surpasses it. It transcends. The Omega transcends what's already now. So the within is ahead.
This sense that there's a fundamental purpose moving through creation or flowing through creation. You could imagine that as a field, and you could marry that concept of actually what I characterize as love flowing through the universe as a field that comes out of a universal consciousness.
And in Darwin's theory of evolution, is there a life force, an Elan Vital, that is pressing forward through physical history in order to make life better and better?
This vital impulse is not just empowering it from within. This vital impulse is from the point of God Omega. This vital impulse is already our future. It's pulling us onward to something more. So I take that optimistically. So I don't think science could ever discover the vital impulse. That it's part of, you might say, the transcendent nature of nature itself. Why does nature transcend itself? And what we're saying is there's something in nature that's at the heart of nature that, in a sense, pulls nature onward.